Welcome, everyone. This is Esalen Live. I'm Christine Chen, where we chat with change agents and swim deep waters. And today we're going to definitely swim some pretty deep waters with Esalen faculty and water evangelist Wallace J. Nichols, otherwise known as Jay. Welcome.
Hey, how are you? Nice to
I'm
see you.
well. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. Everything all right with you?
Uh, you know, no. Things are weird. Things are weird, but feel good today. I'm feeling all right, and I'm happy to be chatting with the Esalen community about this wild time.
It
So
is a wild time. For those who
yeah,
don't know who Jay is, I just want to share some things about you. Marine biologist, the author of Blue Mind, the surprising science that shows how being near, in, on, or underwater can make you happier, healthier, more connected, and better at what you do. Such an evangelist for the water and also a turtle lover, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. Um,
that's right.
Aslan just reopened this week after the Dolan fire, and we just want to extend our sympathies to you and your family. I know that the recent fires took your home, and we just wanted to check in with you on that and see how everything's going, and as well as it could be, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a surprising experience and very humbling. Um, a lot of the things I feel about it sound like cliches that I've heard my whole life that now make perfect sense in a deeper, different way. Um, I feel really fortunate to have the friends and family and community and wise people around to help and support. Um, but really losing everything, all of your things, everything you've known, everything you've collected, losing it in an instant is it's confusing, and it's deeply unsettling, and at the same time somehow clarifying. And so you've got this duality of emotions that you carry through the process that are sometimes in conflict and it doesn't feel right that you can feel these two things at the same time, horror and fascination at the same time, um,
Mhm.
confusion and clarity at the same time. So I'm just in the middle of that, right? Literally right now, today, this month, um, trying to make sense of it. So
Yeah.
we'll see how
Well,
that goes.
we certainly appreciate you joining us in the middle of all of this. You are so gracious to share some pictures with us. And I want to go ahead and show this first one here. Are you looking at the one that you sent me about the fire?
Yes. Yeah,
Can
that was
you
a photo
describe for us,
archive.
could describe for us what we're seeing here? This is one that you just sent to me last night.
Yeah, one of my neighbors, Ian Abernathy, took this photo among many others the night that the fire kind of came through our canyon, which was called Mill Creek Canyon, up north of the town of Davenport. And we evacuated late at night. And I was kind of going about a fairly normal evening of doing some repairs and some maintenance and plaster work, taping the walls to protect the trim and that kind of thing. Had a glass of wine and just started to hear from neighbors that they were getting out and considered staying, in fact, and sleeping there and riding it out, maybe fighting the fire myself. Um, but I went up and assessed the situation and found that fires were coming over the ridges and then up the canyon. And I realized I didn't really have that much time. And so grabbed a few things and um, took off. And I'm glad I did. And that fire, as you know, um, throughout the state has consumed, burned over 4 million acres and nearly 90,000 acres in that area where my home was. Um, so pretty, biggest natural disaster in American history, it's being called. Um, so I feel lucky that I didn't try to be super brave and fight it, with my hose and fire extinguisher, and I have a fire helmet that I could have worn, but I'm really glad that I didn't. I didn't take that on and take that approach, and safely, got out and with my life, and the dog.
And the family's safe and all the
Family,
things that,
everybody's safe. Yeah.
okay.
Well, so our daughter Grace and Dana, my partner Dana, my wife Dana, she and Grace went to New York and took her to college the night before, and so she missed out on the fire, and she's safe. Obviously, she had to start her freshman year with the knowledge that her home disappeared, in the fire.
That's so much. It's a very heavy, heavy feeling, I'm sure, for your entire family. But since you are a steward of the water and have so much of a connection with the earth, which is mostly water, given what's happened in the West with the fires, what's our collective call to action as we watch these things happen? And how can we have a more symbiotic relationship with the earth and the water of the earth?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of information available how to respond to climate change, how to respond to this set of different ecological crises, whether it's plastic pollution or species extinction. And my focus has been, I work on all those themes professionally, but my focus lately has been on taking care of ourselves and each other so that we can remain creative, collaborative, calm, compassionate, all these C words, connected, resilient, because if we aren't those things, we're not going to be good at solving these big, hairy problems. And we burn out so easily if we don't take good care of ourselves. And, the Esalen community knows this well. There's such a focus on self-knowledge, self-care, but then extending that to those around us, to our team members, to our family members, to inviting those we know who are burning out right now, whether they're first responders to fires or health practitioners on the front line in our hospitals and clinics. If you know any of those people, or if you are those people, get in the water daily, hit your reset button, calm yourself down. Because if you stay in that red mind mode, you will burn out, guaranteed. And in that burnt out mode, you're not as much use to yourself, those you love, your community. And so self-care is becoming an easier thing to talk about. Water is such an important ingredient in self-care. And, at a place like Esalen, it's all about the water. You look out on the ocean, the river is right there, the clouds and the rain, the water and the food, of course, the hot springs, the pool. It's all about the water everywhere, all the time. So
You mentioned Red Mind, and your book is called Blue Mind, and it's all about the well-being benefits of being near water. And you just the mentioning of all the things, not just at Esalen, but in our world, water everywhere. Yet the benefits, I know that when I go near water, I just feel better. But you have real data about this. Can you share just a couple of things with us?
Yeah, so red mind refers to this very popular new normal, anxious, sometimes aggravated, distracted, very active state of mind that is just the way we live in modern society, or the way we're told to live. We lose sleep, we can't keep up, we get edgy, and then that, if left unchecked, moves into gray mind, and that's burnout and breakdown, perhaps even depression. And blue mind is when we break away from that red mind, move towards the water. And what happens, even when we talk about it, in fact, or close our eyes and think about it, a lot of meditative and contemplative practices use water imagery, water imagination. But what happens is our breathing rate slows, our heart rate slows, our skin temperature cools. We literally shift into a different mind state that I refer to as blue mind, which opens us up to creativity, opens us up to others, increases our compassion, We become more open to awe and wonder. And we kind of leave that high cortisol mode, which is red mind, behind, and move into a calmer place. A lot of people forget to do that.
If we're talking about blue mind and getting there more and being more like that, is this a practice? Is this a way of life that we have to shift the way we live in order to get there and be more like that if we want to feel these benefits?
It's definitely a practice, and I think it's a lot more available than people realize. So you have, of course, the ocean, the lakes, the rivers, the creeks, the rain, the wild water, but you also have all your domestic water, which could be your shower, your bathtub, the sink, if you have access to a swimming pool or an outdoor tub. That's the domestic water. Then there's also the urban water, so the fountains and the urban waterfronts that you can, if you're in New York City, you can take a little walk and end up sitting by a fountain and just relaxing, listening to the sound of the water, or maybe even feeling a few drops of it, having a deeper conversation while sitting by a fountain. And then, of course, the virtual water, which is the photography, the art, the music, the recordings, the poetry and prose, all of the ways water is depicted in our lives, when in fact there is no physical water present. It's the virtual version of water. Reading a Mary Oliver poem about water could be a way to get there, or Pablo Neruda, whomever your favorite poet may be. There's lots of great songs about water that have water references in their lyrics that help get you into that place.
For
But
sure. Is this the way that we stay connected, is to be in this flow of water, not just with the elements, but also with each other? And then in the time of COVID that we're in right now, I imagine this has incredible well-being benefits for all of us.
yeah, it's a powerful metaphor. You use the word flow, and of course, water flows. And when we are like water, as Bruce Lee might say, we flow. But that flow state is very personal. And I like to think about taking the flow state to the next level, which is when we flow together, when we groove, so that we get from a flow state to a groove state. And again, that's also kind of maybe a water metaphor or a musical metaphor. So flowing together is really the goal. When I think about Blue Mind, we need to get beyond the self-care, get from the me to the we, as Dan Siegel would say, the we state, where it's not just all about us as individuals. It's not just about us being in flow. It's about all of us together, our team, our family, our community, getting to that groove state. And so that's a project that we won't get too deep into that. It's a next book about the science of groove. But I think it's so important, especially this time when we're socially distanced, where there's a lot of divisiveness, where groove may be hard to come by just because of the societal structures that are changing. It's never been more important that we figure out how to connect and work together well, whether it's as a sports team, as a musical group, as a business, an org, and certainly as families and communities. Yeah.
So is it just the bringing in of the water element, to be near it, to walk near it, to read the poetry that has the water imagery in it? Is that the thing that just moves us to a place where we are changing human beings, where we can flow together better? Is that just part of the practice that you're describing specifically?
Yeah, so I think it's not it's a tool, an additional tool, and it's an additional awareness, I would say. If you become aware of your blue mind in all of the ways you interact with water throughout your days, you may prioritize it a bit more. You may be more conscious of how the water is helping you reach a more mindful, meditative, calm state. And when you become aware of it, then it's really hard to forget. Once you get blue mind as a concept, it's really hard to forget it, because everywhere you go, you will be reminded that the water makes you feel a little bit better. So when you bathe, when you travel to work, if you are still doing that, maybe you cross a body of water, maybe you go over a bridge, when you go outside in the rain, And so we're just going to be constantly reminded of our own blue minds, and then reminded to practice it more regularly. So it's an additional practice, or an additional tool for your toolkit, to take better care of yourself.
Many of the experts are saying that anxiety is at an all-time high, depression is on the rise. Some other experts we've talked to on Esalen Live have talked about the fact that we are going through collective trauma. And how does our ability to tap into water and the healing benefits of water factor into what we're all going through right now?
What we've seen over the last decade of working on Blue Mind is that individuals who are dealing with the highest levels of anxiety, stress, trauma, post-traumatic stress, derive the greatest benefits from a practice that involves water. So whether it's surf therapy, float therapy, just listening to water recordings, water sounds at night to help them sleep, swimming, bathing, any activity that gets your body near, in, on, or underwater. Those who need it most you see the needle move the furthest. And so that group of people who are dealing with high levels of anxiety, stress, and even depression has gotten a lot bigger this year, and for a variety of reasons: economics, politics, pandemics, and then all the background environmental crises that we've been talking about for a long time. And so throw in your house burning down, and you've got a pretty rough mix of stressors. And so really, I see this idea, this Blue Mind idea, has never been more important, never been more useful, not just for those who are dealing with extreme levels of anxiety, but really all of us. There's an added benefit that when we recognize that water heals us, we desire to take better care of it. And there's this beautiful feedback loop. So if you recognize that Puget Sound is your medicine, then you're going to be a warrior for Puget Sound in a way that maybe you didn't quite understand when you were focused on the biodiversity or the economic benefits solely, which are very important. The ecological and economic benefits are fundamental. But when you have this insight into the emotional health, emotional wellness benefits of the Pacific Ocean, Mill Creek, the Mississippi River, Puget Sound, the Great Lakes, it adds this dimension, adds this impetus to protect and restore that water that gives us so much. And so there's this beautiful feedback loop that happens with Blue Mind.
That is the symbiotic relationship, right? Well, when you recognize that this is medicine and that you are honoring that it gives something to you that you want to give back and return the favor, what are some of the ways that we can start to shift how we treat the water, be with the water, integrate it into our lives without harming it further?
I would say if you're one of the people who's listening to this conversation saying, yeah, I know all this, I practice this, I'm a water baby, as people like to say. I'm a water person, as you and I both are. Take somebody out with you next time. Share it. That's, I think, the best thing we can do. If you're thinking, hey, I'm going to go down to the water to get my Blue Mind on because it's been a long day, and you have a neighbor that you know is having a tough time, go knock on the door, and say, let's have a socially distanced walk down to the water, and I think you need it because you've been cooped up too long. I know your stress is high. Maybe a family member, a coworker. So share the love, share your Blue Mind with others as often as possible, and share it virtually as well. So share this video, share your insights, share your thoughts about how important water is for our health and well-being, for our emotional health, but also our spiritual health. And I think that's the direction I like to go. And there are lots of things you can do, about related to your diet, related to what you buy or what you don't buy, the organizations you support, the beach cleanups, and so on. People are pretty familiar with that stuff. So I like to focus on the emotional health side to try to change that value equation so that it's a more realistic representation of what our waters are worth, because we've learned that when we undervalue anyone or anything, bad things happen. When we undervalue water, bad things happen to the water. When we undervalue a group of people, bad things happen. Whether we're talking about gender, race, orientation, when we undervalue humans, when we undervalue the wild world, we see it's almost always leads to bad things. So let's fix that value equation. Let's value each other, and let's value our waters abundantly and appropriately. And that's a regenerative approach. And I think it leads to desire to protect and restore that relationship. Yeah.
You sharing this story and the story of what happened to your family, the relationship of water to fire, and sharing this photo, so generous of you to share this photo, that it really drives home the message that our actions have a real impact. Even though you say, you might know this already, you might know this in your brain, but when you see pictures like this, and I'm sure you feel deeply as well with this, what does this really tell us about how we can show up in the next phase of our life? And tell us what we're seeing here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so that photograph is that's our fireplace. It was sort of the center of our home, and you can see some of the holes in it, the different beams connected via that very very large fireplace. Um, and I just reflecting on it right now. That fireplace was contained fire, purposeful fire for warmth, for communion, for family gatherings, for cooking. We cooked in it, and so that's fire contained as a utility, really. Well, of course, in the wildfires, hence the name wildfire, out of control fire that's just burning through the forests. It devastated our home and ironically left the fireplace standing and nothing else. So you see metal roofing, and my library of books is just dust. And so we went out to check to see what was left. Julia, my daughter, and I, and Ian, our neighbor, who took this photo, Ian Abernathy, and yeah, just a mess. And
Yeah, you're getting a lot of love on Facebook, by the way. Thank you to Elsa
oh,
for saying embracing heart in a blue mind for you, Jay. So, we're with you. And, you wrote your daughter that went to college. You tried to tell her that this happened. I know that you said you have to kneel down and honor the weather.
mhm.
And then you wrote her this beautiful letter that's been published, and this is just part of it. Would you mind reading this if that's not too much?
Yeah, Aaron. So our daughter's name is Wallace Grace. She's sort of named after all the men in our family, which I thought was a good idea when she was born. My dearest Wallace Grace, your house in the redwoods by the creek and ocean lasted nearly 19 years. It survived fires, droughts, floods, and earthquakes. It also survived some of our great parties, our friends' weddings, holiday gatherings, and many sleepovers. I wish I could have protected our home from the fires, but I couldn't, and I didn't.
And I know this is just an excerpt of the beautiful letter that you wrote, and we'll share the link on the Facebook page as well. Um, some profound things that you said there about just wishing that you could protect it, and it's so clear that your passion for like being a steward of the water and the earth just comes from deep down within. If there's anything that we can take away from this conversation, your expertise, your experience, what would you offer us?
Um, I what's really clear to me is that we're in it, right? We're in the thing that we've been saying it's coming, the scary future of change and the results of our relationship with the natural world. It's not a 2050 scenario. It's here. We're here. Um, we're not predicting anything. We're living in it, whether it's climate change or plastic pollution, species extinction, um, and the stress that comes with that. This is it. We're doing that now. We're responding. The thing that's so clear to me, even when everything you know is ashes, it's still home. It's our home planet, whether it's beautiful, lush green forest or post-fire apocalyptic forest. It's home. Don't forget that. Don't forget that this is a beautiful home still. And it's shaking around and it's burning and it's changing and we're still here. Fall in love with the post-fire ecological renaissance, rejuvenation that's happening around us. Watch as the redwoods start shooting out little green new leaves. It's beautiful. And don't detach, I guess, is probably, don't leave. Don't burn out. Find your little green leaf wherever you can in this red mind, gray mind mode that we're in, and celebrate it. Stay alive, stay resilient, stay creative. Jump in the water if you need to. Take somebody with you, because now is not the time to burn out, even when everything you know is just a big mess of ashes. So
There is definitely a conversation with all of us and the earth right now, and in the middle of everything that everyone's going through. Everyone's stories are so different right now, and worth everything as we share them. I imagine there's still times when the earth brings you, and the water in particular, brings you awe, despite everything that you've gone through, even just recently. Turtles are one of them. Yeah.
yes, indeed. I love turtles, and I really can't explain exactly why, but they give me a lot of joy, and I just want to help them stick around. So that's a big part of my work, is helping sea turtles persist, and helping people adjust their way of living to allow animals like turtles to coexist. Like this little one here in Indonesia, that was we took a bunch of them out beyond the reef to give them a little extra boost that day. It was a nice day. Yeah.
Yeah. Jay, a lot of love still coming in for you. Jocelyn says, thank you for what you're saying. It's so powerful for everyday life. And those little moments like with a turtle or acknowledging that the water is the medicine, these are all the things that you give us an inspiration to try and change and show up better as humans in the future. So we thank you in the middle of all this for joining us and sharing your wisdom and being part of an Esalen team and being part of Esalen faculty. And all our sympathies and our best wishes from the Esalen family to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your words and those wishes are received and very much appreciated. Yeah.
Stay in touch, take care, and we will see you very, very soon.
And I look forward to that. Yeah. And get in the water.
100%. Thank you, Jay. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.